Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the White House. I have to say, after 18 months, it still doesn't get old saying that. We're honored that all of you could be here for what is our 12th Clean Energy Forum here at the White House. I thank you for your commitment to this important issue. My name is Chris Liu, and I manage the White House Office of Cabinet Affairs. And part of my job is to help manage large projects that cut across different agencies. And over the past 18 months, one of the most important and one of the most exciting projects that I've been involved in is helping to implement one of the administration's largest priorities, which is coming up with a policy for energy and climate change. You know, putting America back in control of our energy future is about more than just creating energy independence and reducing the emission of greenhouse gases. It's also about fostering competitiveness, innovation, and building the economic foundation for our country leading the world in clean energy. To do that, the President has asked us to convene a green cabinet composed of senior-level officials in the administration to meet regularly to coordinate the administration's work in this initiative. As part of this effort, we've engaged in an unprecedented effort to talk to the American people about the important energy challenges that we face and our ideas for creating a new energy future. That includes convening forums like this one, and it also involves sending administration officials around the country to talk about the investments that we've made in clean energy through the Recovery Act. Just yesterday, the President traveled to Holland, Michigan for the groundbreaking of a factory that will produce advanced batteries for electric and hybrid vehicles. 7 other secretaries and other high-level administration officials traveled to similar factories around the country. To give you a significance of the single investment of $2.4 billion through the Recovery Act, just a few years ago, the United States had the capacity to build only 2% of the advanced batteries in this country. Through the investments that we've made through the Recovery Act, in a couple of years, we'll have 40% of the world's capacity. That's pretty extraordinary. And again, that's more than just reducing our dependence on foreign oil. It's also about revitalizing our manufacturing sector in this country and creating good-paying jobs here in the United States. There is no more important partner in the administration's effort to create a new green energy than our Secretary of Commerce, Gary Locke. In his travels around the world, he's seen firsthand the efforts that countries like China and Germany are making to capitalize on the market for clean energy products. He knows that America cannot sit on the sidelines. That's why he and his department have worked hard to put this event together. They understand the importance of this issue, and they know that this effort has to be a partnership between the federal government and the business community. So we're excited that all of you could be here today. We have an outstanding group of business leaders and government officials who are here to present their work, to get your feedback, and most importantly, to hear some of your best ideas. So with that, it is my honor to introduce the next speaker. Last September, the President selected Ron Bloom to be the administration's senior counselor for manufacturing policy. Ron was given the critical task of developing new initiatives to reinvigorate the manufacturing sector and improve our nation's competitiveness. We're privileged to have him, so please join me in welcoming him to the stage. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Chris, for your kind introduction, and thanks to all of you for coming to participate in this Clean Energy Forum. I'm glad to see some familiar faces from companies I know well, and it's also great to see so many new faces. I'm looking forward to collaborating with all of you as we move forward with our work on clean energy technology. I'm very pleased to be here today because I think this series of events lies right at the intersection of 2 of our nation's biggest challenges. First, in order to reduce our oil dependence and avoid the worst consequences of global warming, we need to fundamentally rethink the way we produce and consume energy in our country. Second, the only way to get our economy going again and repair the damage this recession has caused to families and communities all over the country is to put Americans back to work in good-paying jobs. The White House has put together this forum because your work in the lab, on the factory floor, in the boardroom, and in the halls of government is going to be a big part of the solution to both those problems. And with a little help from us, you've already gotten off to a great start. In recent years, we've seen explosive growth in all kinds of clean energy technology that touches every aspect of our lives. Thanks to the products you're helping to develop, Our homes and businesses are using less energy, and the energy they do use is cleaner than it's ever been. One example of this progress that we in the administration are particularly proud of is the huge influx of investment in advanced battery production. As Chris mentioned, just a couple of years ago, we were only making 2% of the batteries that go into hybrid and electric vehicles. 5 years from now, we'll be making 40%. And that capacity will not go to waste. Experts believe that as electric cars catch on, we're going to need all the batteries we can make. And if the success of the recent Tesla IPO is any indication, we might need even more. In case you haven't heard, Tesla executed a successful IPO a couple of weeks ago, the first by an American auto company in more than 50 years. Now, given our modest ownership stake in a couple of other car companies, I will confess that we're hoping it won't be quite so long until the next one. We're proud of our support for clean energy technology, and we want to continue to provide assistance and provide it in a thoughtful way. Despite what some critics may claim, we're not interested in command and control. We want to revitalize American manufacturing with minimal interference in private enterprise. We want to help old industries adapt and new industries emerge, but then we want to get out of the way. That's why we're promoting a manufacturing policy agenda built around programs like the 48C Clean Energy Manufacturing Tax Credit. I know some of you are familiar with 48C. We have a list of 48C recipients, I believe, in the audience today, including Suniva, Vestas, the Shaw Group, GE, United Solar Ovionic, Alstom, Texas Instrument, and First Solar. I apologize if I missed anyone. For those of you who don't know, 48C is a Recovery Act program that allows manufacturers who produce components for clean energy systems like solar panels, wind turbines, and batteries for electric vehicles to expand their businesses and deduct 30% of the investment costs from their income taxes. We expect that the $2.3 billion in tax credits, combined with the $5.4 billion in private capital they support, will create over 50,000 jobs. But we don't want to end there. While the Recovery Act allocated $2.3 billion to 48C, we had applications from qualified companies for 3 times that amount. That's why the President has asked Congress for another $5 billion for 48C, new funding that could be put to use right away, spurring private investment to create jobs today and build the industries of tomorrow. America has always led the way in the area of clean energy technology, ever since the first solar water heater was invented in the United States in the late 19th century. But other countries know that it's in their national interest to lead the way in burgeoning industries like wind and solar, so they're pushing ahead with aggressive plans to support clean energy research, development, and production. The fact is, if we don't get it in gear, we're going to be left behind. That's why the administration supports a comprehensive approach to energy policy that includes significant investments in all kinds of clean energy technology. The House of Representatives has already passed a truly visionary energy and climate bill, and there's currently a plan in the Senate that would achieve the same goals. We know our friends at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue are working hard to resolve their differences and come to a bipartisan compromise. And we hope they'll be able to get a law passed that includes additional money for 48C before they adjourn for the summer. But in the meantime, the administration is already working on many other areas that are critical to supporting growth in the clean energy sector. For example, we're focused on the importance of job training because we need our workforce to be prepared for the job of the future. We're promoting stable and efficient capital markets to facilitate business investment. We're investing in infrastructure like broadband, internet, and smart grid, which are critical for high-tech industries like yours. And we're doing everything we can to make sure U.S. companies have the tools they need to export their products and that they're competing on a level playing field with firms in other countries. These various projects are being implemented throughout the administration. But I have the pleasure of introducing today one of the real leaders of the President's ambitious effort to turn around the country. After a couple of terms as governor of the state of Washington and a few years as a trade lawyer in Seattle, Gary Locke was sworn in as the 36th Secretary of Commerce on March 26, 2009. He is a tireless soldier in the fight for American workers. He has relentlessly traveled the globe advancing our trade agenda, and he is a true leader in the effort to grow America's clean energy economy. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Gary Locke.
Well, thanks, Ron, for the introduction. And Ron is just doing a terrific job working across all sectors of the administration and forming a manufacturing policy and really making sure that that part of our economy, which pays more than the average in terms of salaries and wages, continues to grow, and that it's part of the recovery. And I want to thank all of you for traveling today to be here in Washington, D.C. I know many of you have traveled great distances and are very, very busy, and we thank you for your participation. It's also great to see so many colleagues from across the administration. And it's really great to see some familiar faces who were part of the companies that accompanied me on a major trade mission to China and Indonesia this past May. So thank you very much for joining us, and it's always great to hear of your progress in the intervening months. As you all know, scaling up America's clean energy industry is a top priority of the President and his entire administration. It's central to our security, our environment, and as President Obama said, quote, "The nation that leads the clean energy economy will be the nation that leads the global economy, and America must be that nation," end quote. Clean energy is key to revitalizing an American industrial and manufacturing base that once supported the most prosperous middle class in history. And it can create exactly the type of high-skilled, high-wage jobs that we need more of in America. Now, we all know that there are plenty of people in government and in the business sector and in media who question the promise of clean energy. They tell you that clean energy may be nice. It might make us feel good. It might even be worth investing in. But to imagine that it can produce a substantial share of the world's energy, to imagine that clean energy can be a significant driver of economic growth and job creation, well, the critics say that's just not realistic. That's not just serious. Can't be done. Well, if the next few decades of American energy policy look like the last few decades, where our will to act on clean energy has risen and fallen with the price of the barrel of oil, then the naysayers may be right. Our challenge is to write a different story, to convince people of the truth that the development of clean energy and energy efficiency and energy efficient technologies could spur the greatest economic opportunity of the 21st century. The question before us is, will America seize that opportunity? Because if we don't, as Ron indicated, other countries will be happy to. In fact, they're already doing that. And right now, countries in Europe and Asia are making massive investments in clean energy. So the train has already left the station. And the question is, will we join that race? But the race is still wide open for which country will become the epicenter of clean energy innovation and the destination for capital, businesses, and the jobs that come with it. And today we're talking about how we can ensure that America is that nation by focusing on spurring innovation through our domestic clean energy supply chain and ensuring America's competitiveness in the international marketplace. President Obama and his administration have already made unprecedented efforts in both of these areas. The Obama administration has invested over $80 billion in clean energy through the Recovery Act, passed the toughest fuel economy standards in history, as well as incentivized more stringent energy standards for buildings, appliances, and consumer electronics. Meanwhile, the Department of Commerce has put its resources behind growing clean energy businesses at every step of the business development process. Our Patent and Trademark Office has announced a program that will allow inventors seeking patents for green technologies to have their submissions receive an expedited review. Our National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, is making tremendous progress in working with industry to develop standards that will support the nationwide deployment of a smart grid. And we're working on cutting-edge research to facilitate more energy-efficient manufacturing and construction processes. As we work to scale up the clean energy industry at home, Commerce is also playing a key role in the President's National Export Initiative, and we're putting a particular focus on opening up opportunities for U.S. clean energy and efficiency companies abroad. In fact, Commerce is working with the Department of Energy to create the nation's first national renewable energy and energy efficiency export strategy. And what we're doing is producing results. You know, just yesterday I was in Georgia visiting a company, Suniva, which manufactures high-efficiency solar cells. It's a great product, has a great workforce, and with help from the federal agencies, including the Department of Energy, the Export-Import Bank, as well as the Department of Commerce, Suniva exports more than 90% of its products to Asia and Europe last year, while creating 150 new clean energy jobs in the United States. I think they produce, if I remember correctly, without any notes, about 150,000 solar cell wafers a day. Their warehouses are completely empty, cannot export enough. In fact, they're preparing to open a new manufacturing plant in Michigan that would create some 500 new direct jobs immediately. They're in line for a loan guarantee from the Department of Energy. And we were talking about batteries. Ron was talking about battery deployment. During our trade mission to China just 2 months ago, we visited a battery facility in Tianjin. That's a joint development between the Chinese company and Koda of the United States. They actually have plans to start manufacturing those batteries, moving that manufacturing from China back to the United States, and hope to be soon building their first all-electric vehicle in a year. But for all the promise that we see in companies like Suniva or Koda and many of the other companies here, we know that much more needs to be done. Right now, billions of investment dollars are sitting on the sidelines because of lack of certainty in the energy market. And we know that from all of our conversations with many of you, that you want to invest, you want to deploy more people, R&D, and capital into clean energy. And so many venture capital funds also want to do that. But they're all standing on the sidelines because of a lack of certainty with respect to energy policy in the United States. Until that changes, we can't expect businesses and utilities that are accountable to shareholders to make a wholesale transition to clean energy. And we can't expect more entrepreneurs to make investments in clean energy solutions that may or may not be self-sustaining in the energy marketplace. In short, we can't count on the full participation of the private sector. And without that, America cannot solve its energy challenges or significantly scale up its clean energy industry. And that's why President Obama, along with business leaders like many of you, and corporate heavyweights ranging from U.S. Steel to Nike to John Deere and IBM, are pushing for the Senate to pass comprehensive energy legislation that features a price on carbon. This would essentially put a floor under the price of fossil fuels instead of the uncertain target that we have today. And it would send a surefire market signal to every entrepreneur and business in America that it is safe and profitable to make long-term investments in clean energy and energy efficiency. And still, many of the loudest voices in our energy debate continue to make apocalyptic and overblown claims about energy reform that have a depressingly familiar ring to them. But here's the fact. China is spending some $9 billion a month promoting clean energy. And they're doing this not just to meet their energy needs or to address the emissions of greenhouse gases. They're doing this to become the world supplier of clean energy and technology to the rest of the world. And if we don't pass an energy policy that sets clear signals so that you all know whether to invest R&D and capital into technology A versus technology B, we're going to be waiting, and the race will have continued without us. And soon we will wake up and say, how is it that China or Germany and other parts of the world have the millions and millions of jobs that come with clean energy? Over the last several decades, short-sighted politicians and their industry allies have repeatedly predicted that sensible environmental and energy regulations would spell economic disaster. And they said it during the debates of the Clean Air and Water Act, or even the fight that we had over a market-based system to curb acid rain back in the early 1990s. In virtually every case, those measures cost far less than predicted and ultimately provided tremendous benefits for society as well as for businesses. The lesson here is simple. When you get the incentives right, the private sector can respond with solutions that are both effective and affordable. And that's the way innovation should work in America. Despite the claims of critics that government can never play a constructive role in our economy, this is the way that U.S. innovation has always worked, be it the development of the internet or solar panels or even memory foam mattresses. The federal government can help set the stage for innovation with investments in basic research and with sensible rules, regulations, and incentives, which then enable the actual innovating, the creating, and the commercialization to occur in the private sector. I was in Ann Arbor Tuesday and Atlanta yesterday at forums discussing the technology commercialization policies that govern how we move new inventions and new technologies out of university research labs into the marketplace. On Wednesday, the White House convened a meeting where the President even dropped by, where we talked about strengthening America's cybersecurity. And here today, we're talking about clean energy. These are three completely different issues, and yet the common denominator with all of them is that this administration is trying to learn about how we can serve as a catalyst for innovation from the people on the front lines of these challenges, how we can empower universities, entrepreneurs, and businesses to develop the breakthrough technologies that we need to get this economy roaring again. America's failure to scale up clean energy and efficiency is not because of a lack of potential. Rather, it's because of a lack of vision and a failure of leadership. And after a century dominated by fossil fuel use, it's naturally hard to imagine any other way. And there are plenty of smart and experienced people saying that our energy future has to look a whole lot like our energy past. But it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, it simply can't be that way if we want to preserve America's national security. With the right vision and the right commitment, we can build a clean energy economy that provides good jobs and sets America and the world up for decades of sustainable economic growth. Everyone here today is playing a part in helping that future become a reality. And I thank you for continually pressing to keep America's clean energy policies moving in the right direction. Thank you again.